My husband had a concubine he utterly despised. He held me, his lawful wife, in high regard, while doting on his newly acquired beauty. Yet he treated her with cold neglect and harshness, beating and scolding her at the slightest provocation, locking her away. I felt pity for this orphaned girl who had fallen into disgrace within our household, so I shielded and cared for her in every way. Yet I never imagined that after I died in childbirth, my husband would immediately elevate her to his new wife, bestowing all my dowry upon her. Only then did I learn that Yuan Shashuan's coldness and harsh treatment toward her weren't born of indifference. Rather, it was precisely because of his deep love that he used deception to protect her. Furious, I was reborn. This time, I'd see just how much this so-called true love, forged through suffering without my aid, could endure. Yin Yang. This is Su Jirua, the one mother insisted on forcing upon me. You needn't trouble yourself over her. You are my wife, bound to me for life. My heart belongs only to you. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw my husband, Yuan Shaoxian, holding my hand affectionately, whispering words both deep and cold into my ear. Kneeling below the dais was a woman in plain robes, head bowed, expression unreadable, holding a teacup high with both hands, waiting for me to take it. I instantly realized I had been reborn. Reborn on the day after our wedding. Here, the concubine Su Jirua was presenting me with the concubine's tea. In my previous life, I had accepted it without a second thought. But the tea was scalding hot. I couldn't steady it, and the cup shattered on the floor. Su Jirua was so frightened she began kowtowing repeatedly. Spilled tea dripped onto her hair, mingling with her tears as they fell. This pitiful sight, like pear blossoms drenched in rain, was truly heart-wrenching. Yet my own heart was thrown into turmoil by Yuan Shaoxuan's repeated questions. Where does it burn? Does it hurt? Let me blow on it, blowing will make it better. One wife was cherished and pampered by her husband, held in the palm of his hand. The other knelt on the floor, tears streaming down her face. This stark contrast led others to mistakenly believe I had deliberately dropped the teacup. From that day on, I gained a reputation for being jealous, vying for favor, and treating my concubines harshly. Yet at the time, I was utterly intoxicated by Yuan Shaoxuan's undivided affection. I had no heart for arguments, only secret delight. Convinced I'd found a man who truly cherished me, I failed to notice that the heartfelt pity in his eyes wasn't for me. Thinking of this now, the searing sensation still lingers on my fingertips. I withdrew the hand Yuan Shaoxian was holding, took an embroidered handkerchief to drape over my lap, and turned to look at Su Jirua, who appeared delicate and harmless in the hall. This tea is too hot. I'll drink it once it cools. If I didn't take it, she would keep holding it. Su Jirua hadn't expected me to see through her. Hearing this, she instinctively lifted her head. Noticing my half-smile, she hastily shifted her gaze to Yuan Shaoxian, discreetly switching the fingers holding the tea bowl. Judging she'd reached her limit enduring the scalding liquid, Yuan Shaoxian, called upon by his beloved, cleared his throat. Ahem. Since it's too hot, I'll have another bowl prepared for the toast. I raised a hand to halt the servant who was about to step forward. Husband, His Majesty advocates frugality. Our marquisate is vast and our expenditures considerable, we must practice greater restraint. Wasting a cup of tea is hardly wise. We can drink it once it cools. With that, I closed my eyes, ignoring the stiff expressions of the two before me, letting the maid behind me knead my shoulders. Silence filled the room. Since my past life portrayed me as jealous and cruel to my concubines, I felt compelled to prove otherwise. It would feel like a debt I owed. After a while, I sensed a change in the pressure on my shoulders. It must have been Yuan Shaoxian taking over, the Marquis personally massaging his wife's shoulders. He wore such a deeply affectionate expression that had I not wandered as a soul after my death in my past life, I might still believe he loved me to the bone. Yuan Shaoxian had personally come to ask for my hand in marriage. He claimed to have fallen for me at first sight during the flower viewing banquet hosted by the eldest princess, declaring I was the only one for him. After our marriage in my past life, we lived in perfect harmony, overflowing with deep affection. Convinced of our deep bond, I devoted myself to managing the household, attending to my mother-in-law, treating servants generously, and being kind to the concubines, especially towards Su Zhirua. I felt an extra measure of pity. She was my mother-in-law's cousin's daughter, betrothed to Yuan Shaoxian since before she was born, their parents having pledged their unborn children to each other. They grew up together, childhood sweethearts. Yet upon reaching marriageable age, her family's misfortune cast her as the daughter of a disgraced minister. Not only was the betrothal annulled, but she was reduced to becoming her fiancé's concubine. Looking back, I realize my own foolishness. When Yuan Shaoxian broke the engagement because his betrothed had fallen from grace, I should have seen his true character. At first, I refused to believe they had no affection for each other, and I resented it deeply. Yet Yuan Shaoxuan's coldness and harsh treatment toward her sometimes felt excessive even to me. He would scold her with a cold face at the slightest provocation, withhold food and clothing, and even confine her to her quarters on a whim. I came to believe my husband truly despised this concubine, whom he had taken in only to obey his mother's command. As a woman, I felt heartbroken for her plight. So I looked after her in every way, treating her with kindness and care. When the palace distributed tropical fruits from the south, all the mistresses received portions except Su Zhirua. I secretly sent my portion to her, because my elder sister was the Empress. Such fruits were commonplace in the Grand Tutor's residence, and I had long grown tired of them. During the harshest winter, every chamber had ample charcoal and thick cotton garments. Yet Su Zhirua's room contained only last year's worn-out cotton clothes, and the charcoal supply was often insufficient. Knowing the servants were playing favorites, I specifically reprimanded the steward and sent my personal maid to deliver freshly made cotton garments herself. Falsely accused by another concubine, Lady Fong, she couldn't defend herself, only repeating that she was utterly unable to explain. Without even investigating, Yuan Shaoxian demanded she be confined to her quarters. I, however, spared no effort to uncover the truth, clearing her name and restoring her freedom. Later, I died in childbirth. I believed my life, though brief, had been fulfilled in every way. Yet after my death, my soul did not enter the cycle of reincarnation but instead drifted through the mortal world. I watched Yuan Shaoxian impatiently devour my dowry, bestowing it all upon Su Zhirua. He immediately elevated her to principal consort, then used his achievements to secure her an imperial decree of nobility. Su Zhirua shed her former pitiable, white lotus demeanor, dressed in the Persian cloud brocade my elder sister had gifted me, adorned head to toe in gold and jewels. She fluttered about like a butterfly finally seeing sunlight, flaunting her power everywhere. Simultaneously, she withheld servants' wages and tormented the other concubines. Yet Yuan Shaoxian didn't care. Instead, he indulged her every whim with doting permissiveness, watching them inseparable. I realized then that Yuan Shaoxuan's coldness and harsh treatment weren't born of indifference. It was precisely because of his deep love that he shielded her with deceptive tactics. So, they'd been playing me for a fool all along. My soul laughed until it cried. When I opened my eyes again, heaven had granted me a second chance. This time, I would see clearly, without my intervention, how much of this so-called true love, which truly endured neglect and coldness, could actually withstand the test. My thoughts snapped back to reality. Judging the timing was right, I slowly opened my eyes. By now, Sujirua was on the verge of tears, her arms trembling uncontrollably, making the bowl lid clatter. Only then did I deign to take it. As soon as I brought it to my lips, I frowned. The tea was cold. Her arms had just lowered when she heard this, and the tears pooling in her eyes finally spilled over. Heartbroken, Yuan Shaoxian fidgeted restlessly, urging the servants, "Quick! Replace it immediately." Only when she presented another cup at the perfect temperature did I take a sip. After the tea ceremony, it was my turn to present the meeting gift. All eyes watched as I adjusted my sleeves, my hand gliding over a flawless jade bangle. I smoothed the intricate hairpins adorning my cloud-like coiffure, then ran my fingers through a substantial gold hairpin. Then my fingers touched the dazzling ruby earrings. But they lingered nowhere. Instead, I beckoned a maid to kneel and remove the plain pearl earrings from my own ears. I ordered the maid to present them to Sujirua. A gift from the mistress, one must accept. She slowly reached out to take them, while Yuan Shaoxuan's expression darkened beside her. "Madam Yun, this seems rather frugal. If word gets out, it might tarnish the Grand Tutor's household's dignity." Watching Yuan Shaoxian feign concern for me while actually advocating for his favored concubine, I blinked my innocent eyes innocently and explained with genuine sincerity. "My lord fails to understand my intentions." Seeing Sister Jirua dressed entirely in white, she must still be in mourning, yet her ears alone adorned with bright red agate earrings, this violates propriety. I thought perhaps she had overlooked it, or her jewelry box was incomplete. The jewelry I wear is too gaudy, so I specially sought out a suitable pair of earrings to bestow upon her. To be thorough, "Husband, please rest assured. My maid has served me long and received many gifts. So these pearl earrings are no ordinary trinket. A single pair is worth more than all the jewelry my sister wears." Watching the two of them snort and choke on their words, my smile grew ever brighter. The Su family's mourning period had long passed. Her white robes served only to accentuate her delicate figure, while also keeping Yuan Shaoxuan's affectionate gaze fixed upon her. But they couldn't discern the truth now. If not mourning for family, then surely mourning for the nation. With His Majesty in perfect health, such thoughts would be treasonous. They dared not. Yuan Shaoxian forced a smile and slipped his arm around my shoulders. As always, Yunyang handles things with such tact. "It's getting late, we must pay our respects to Mother." Seeing me nod and follow obediently, the two secretly breathed a sigh of relief. But I suddenly turned back, meeting Sujirua's eyes filled with bitter resentment. I raised an eyebrow, my smile charming and playful. "Husband," I said, "I hear my sister used to reside in Mother's courtyard. Now that she's with you, she should find a place in our quarters soon. I'm new here and unfamiliar with the estate's arrangements. It's best if you decide, husband, so my sister can settle in and rest." Yuan Shaoxuan's jaw twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, "Then it shall be Yuzhu Pavilion." I agreed, though inwardly surprised. Rain Bamboo Pavilion lay in the northwest, adjacent to the side gate, the most remote and desolate corner of the entire Marquise estate. In my past life, Yuan Shaoxian never had her stay here. It seemed the course of events truly shifted according to my attitude. Behind me, Sujirua could no longer hold back, lowering her head to sob aloud. That night, first, a servant reported that Yuan Shaoxian would be staying in his study tonight. Then, the maid Dongrui whispered her report. This servant has ascertained that the Marquis secretly took a back path toward the northwest of the rear courtyard. "Miss, should we?" Seated before my dressing table, I watched my own reflection in the mirror and let a mocking smile curve my lips. He must be rushing to comfort his beloved after she suffered humiliation today. The figure in the mirror shook her head. "Never mind. Attend to my ablutions." The maids bustled about. Once Dongrui had removed my hairpins and ornaments, I handed her a brocaded box. golden, amber inlaid earrings. Exchange these for your pearl earrings. Would you be willing? These were the very gifts I bestowed upon Sujirua in my past life, 100-fold more precious than pearl earrings. Dongruei accepted them with both hands. Her smile so wide her teeth gleamed. Thank you, miss. You are so kind to me. Her joy infected me. And I found myself smiling too. My dowry was lavish, such mundane trinkets were commonplace to me. Yet in this life, I would never again spend a single coin to support a thankless wretch. In my past life, I caught Sujirua burning the midnight oil embroidering handkerchiefs. Only then did I learn she was penniless, forced to supplement her income by selling her embroidery. When she lived with her mother-in-law, she needn't trouble herself with managing servants. But after becoming Yuan Shaoxuan's concubine, she had to manage all social obligations herself, while the marquisite's expenses were enormous. When her family's estate was confiscated and she was taken in by the marquisate, she was penniless, no dowry, no private property, no steady income from shops. Add to that Yuan Shaoxuan's refusal to give her any allowance, and her monthly stipend was utterly insufficient. Time and again, I intercepted the servants sent to sell her handkerchiefs, buying them back at several times the price and strictly forbidding them to speak of it. Looking back now, wasn't it far more worthwhile to save that money and spend it on those who truly cared for me? Early the next morning, I took my people directly to Yuzhu Pavilion. Since Yuan Shaoxian had sneaked here before, I came without attendants, so no one announced our arrival. Standing in the courtyard strewn with fallen leaves, I glimpsed through the sheer gauze window the figure inside who had just risen. Sujirua dressed Yuan Shaoxian, then suddenly embraced him from behind, her voice choked with emotion. Xian Gu, I live in such a dilapidated courtyard. How can I bear to ask you to come accompany me? Yuan Shaoxian turned and pinched her nose gently. You are in my heart. Naturally, I wish to be with you. Unsatisfied with his answer, Sujirua paused, then buried her face against his chest. If you hold me in your heart, why make me live in such a remote, desolate place? Now I must travel so far just to see you. Do you know? When I first arrived yesterday, dust and cobwebs covered everything. I cleaned for hours just to make it barely livable. Yuan Shaoxian wrapped her in his arms with affection, explaining earnestly. Yesterday, the lady treated you harshly because you stood out too much, drawing her displeasure. If I hadn't shown extreme dislike for you, that woman's jealousy would have brought you endless suffering. I did this for your own good. The woman lifted her head, her eyes blurred with tears. Xian Gu, why do you fear her so? She's merely a concubine's daughter from the Grand Tutor's household. You fool. Though born to a concubine, she was raised under the legitimate mother's care and shares an exceptionally close bond with the Empress. For our marquisate to rise, we must rely on that connection. Naturally, we must tread carefully. The truth stung, yet it sharpened my clarity. Back then, father hadn't refused his marriage proposal, because Yuan Shaoxian hailed from the Marquis of Schwamping's household. The old marquis passed away early, leaving his mother to raise him alone. Upon reaching adulthood, he inherited the title. He became the youngest marquis of the reign. Marrying me, a concubine-born daughter from the Grand Tutor's household, was more than sufficient for him, or rather, it was me reaching beyond my station. But reflecting now, he likely coveted my status as a concubine-born daughter for its malleability, and valued my close ties to my elder sister, now the Empress. The Marquis of Schwamping's lineage had few heirs across generations, with weak collateral branches and no influential figures in court, causing its power to wane. With no suitable marriageable princesses in the imperial family, he could only secure favor by marrying me, thereby becoming the emperor's brother-in-law. In my past life, believing our love was mutual, I sought my elder sister's favor in the palace immediately after our wedding. I secured a position of real power for him. The current emperor cherishes the Empress. So such a minor request was readily granted. This lifetime. Humph. Inside the room, the two continued their sappy displays. Rest assured, I won't stray. Trust my devotion to you, we share years of affection. Were it not for her family background, I wouldn't have given her a second glance. Do you recall the letter I sent you? As long as heaven endures, our love shall never fade. Sujiruo's tears turned to laughter as she echoed his words in unison. Our hearts are like a double silk net, entangled in 1,000 knots. Yuan Shaoxian nodded. Yes. It's enough that you understand my heart. I ask for your patience during this time. When the day comes, I shall repay you 1,000-fold. Hearing this, I let out a cold laugh. Nice dream. Repaying me 1,000-fold. That depends on whether you even get the chance. Sujiruo gave a coy little hum, then knelt to help the man into his shoes and boots. She was already prepared to endure the hardship willingly. Yuan Shaoxian was pleased with her attitude. He pinched her cheek, smiled, then turned and pushed open the door. He collided head-on with me, who was leading a group of servants through the courtyard. Madam Yun, what brings you here? Yuan Shaoxuan's smile froze on his face, his eyes darting nervously. I pretended not to hear, my face still radiant with a warm smile as I inquired with feigned concern. Yesterday, when Sister Jiruo served me hot tea, I didn't notice the blister on her fingertip. Only after returning home did a maid inform me. I couldn't help but feel guilty, it was my oversight. The servants must have served the wrong tea, causing my sister such distress. Such careless servants cannot be kept. That's why I came early today, to replace her attendant with a more attentive one. So such incidents won't happen again. As I spoke, I gestured toward the servants behind me, who kept their eyes downcast and heads bowed in silence. Seeing this, he finally relaxed, raising his hand to wipe a non-existent bead of sweat from his brow. That won't be necessary. I cut him off. Has my husband also come to show concern for our sister? Yuan Shaoxian hastily denied it. No. I was merely passing by during my morning stroll. With that, he turned to leave as if nothing had happened. Oh, husband. I called after him. I have some burn ointment bestowed by the palace. It will ensure your sister heals quickly without scarring. I tried to call him back, but he didn't even glance over. Unnecessary. Such minor injuries heal on their own. Her lowly status makes her unworthy of such fine remedies. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the light in Sujiruo's eyes dim instantly. My dimples deepened as I called out loudly. Then I shall heed my husband's words. With Yuan Shaoxian no longer obstructing, the servant was assigned to Sujiruo's quarters. After returning, Dongrui asked puzzledly, Madam specially selected loyal maidservants for your dowry. Why did you give them away? I flipped through the ledger in my hand without looking up. Precisely because they are loyal. I entrusted them to serve me at Sujiruo's side. As for our side, with money, connections, and your training, why would we lack loyalty? Besides, however foolish Sujiruo may be, she wouldn't dare assign my people as her personal maids. Thus, they won't suffer alongside her, receiving monthly wages while idling away. With their indentured contracts in my hands, Sujiruo holds no power over them. It's a perfect arrangement. This morning's series of actions, personally visiting the concubine, delivering servants and medicine, spreading this story around ultimately earned me a reputation for being kind-hearted and benevolent. Perhaps fearing I might grow suspicious, Yuan Shaoxian avoided Sujiruo's quarters for some time afterward. Instead, he came to my chambers daily, entangling himself with me. I offered no resistance. After all, to turn the tables in this marquis's mansion, I desperately needed an heir. Poor Su Jirua, neglected by her master, was treated with utter disregard by the servants. Her garments arrived with threads still hanging loose. Her sachets were leftovers discarded by others. And her meals were always served cold. Only the personal maidservant by her mistress's side was spared. The rest of the servants in the courtyard ate communal meals, unaffected by the situation. Only Su Jirua's personal maid, Ziying, shared her hardship. When she once confronted the food delivery servants, she was met with righteous scorn. "It's not our fault. You know. Auntie Rose's courtyard is the farthest away. Of course the food gets cold." Exactly. Not only did she fail to thank us for the extra walk, she actually complained. She'd be better off using that time to figure out how to win the Marquis's favor. The whole thing left both mistress and maid thoroughly exasperated. After Su Jirua's outburst, the servants she had placed around her informed me in advance that she intended to seek me out. In my previous life, she had also come to ask me to intervene. Back then, I flew into a rage upon hearing it, reprimanded the responsible servants, and docked their monthly wages, prompting widespread grumbling among the staff. Su Jirua, however, not only regained her normal privileges but even received extra allowances from me, eating almost as well as I did as the legitimate wife. This time around, I won't be so kind. Upon learning Su Jirua was on her way, I sent someone to invite Yuan Xiaoxian. When she arrived, we were in the midst of our evening meal. She sniffed, glanced at the table, swallowed her saliva discreetly, and began her tearful lament. "Xian Gu, you have no idea how those servants torment me. Every meal they bring is cold. Even the simple greens are covered in thick congealed lard. That cold duck soup reeks of gamey flavor, utterly inedible. Wah! How am I supposed to endure this life?" Yuan Xiaoxian glanced at my expression. Seeing I remained unmoved, he finally asked, "What do you think of this, Yin Yang?" I handed him a steaming bowl of spinach and tofu soup, adopting a humble and virtuous demeanor. "As your wife, I naturally defer to your judgment in all matters." His lips twitched, but he pressed on with his roll, barking at Su Jirua. "With both vegetables and meat, this meal surpasses ordinary households 100-fold. Yet you still nitpick and complain, truly ungrateful. Look at what my wife and I are eating, simple and light. Isn't it?" My appetite had been poor these past few days, so the kitchen had deliberately prepared something refreshing. Now Yuan Xiaoxian seized upon this as a point of comparison. Su Jirua sniffled, trying to protest further, but meeting the man's warning gaze, she forced back her tears and bowed her head in resignation. After dismissing Su Jirua, Yuan Xiaoxian's eyes lingered regretfully on her retreating figure. Turning to find me gazing at him meaningfully, he immediately plastered on an ingratiating smile and picked a piece of fish-tail meat for me with his chopsticks. "Yin Yang, come. Let's not let irrelevant people disturb our meal." After dinner, Yuan Xiaoxian drew close to me. He began hesitantly. "Yin Yang, I heard you went to the palace today. Did you see Her Majesty the Empress?" Then about my official position. It was no wonder he was anxious. Though he had held his title for years, he had never managed to enter the court as an official. Truly a man of no purpose. If this continued, not only would his family gradually fall from prominence among the aristocracy, but eventually, the world might even forget the existence of the Marquis of Xuanping's household. In my previous life, I had pleaded with my elder sister to secure him a position in the censorate. Though the rank was low, it allowed him to oversee and impeach officials, potentially earning the emperor's favor. Sure enough, not long after, he distinguished himself during the Prince of Qi's rebellion, rising to left deputy censoring chief with boundless prospects. This lifetime, I entered the palace not to secure him a post, but for myself. In my previous life, I died in childbirth, a knot that has gnawed at my heart since rebirth. I cannot be without my own child. But I was afraid. So I specifically requested the Empress to grant me an experienced wet nurse. The palace harbors far more treacherous schemes than the outside world. Having a battle-hardened old nurse would greatly aid a smooth pregnancy and delivery. As for Yuan Shaoxian, only at the very end did I casually mention it, asking the Empress to find him some idle post. I sipped my tea lightly, then spoke slowly under his expectant gaze. Husband, await good news. Yuan Shaoxuan's eyes lit up instantly. Madam Yun, is it settled? Might you share a hint? The Ministry of Ceremonies, would that please you? Husband? Officials come in ranks of prestige and power. Some wielding authority, others not. My elder sister had agreed to place Yuan Shaoxian in the Ministry of Ceremonies, overseeing foreign affairs. While it sounded impressive, it paled in comparison to the censorate, a position of neither high rank nor significant authority. Yet for Yuan Shaoxian, who had never held office before, simply entering the imperial court was deeply satisfying. Sure enough, his face lit up with unmistakable joy at the news. Yun Yang, marrying you truly is my greatest fortune. He rubbed his hands together. I'll head to the study to prepare. You should rest early tonight. I nodded, watching his cheerful figure retreat. Suddenly, my stomach churned violently. Everything I'd just eaten came rushing back up. The next morning, I felt sluggish and listless. The maids in the room tried every trick to amuse me, but I couldn't muster any interest. Dongrui hurried in from outside and leaned close to my ear. Miss, I have a rather amusing story. Would you care to hear it? She nodded toward the northwest. Go on. I reclined on the soft couch, pulling a silk handkerchief over my eyes to block the glaring sunlight. Last night, not long after the Marquis returned to his study, he secretly sent his personal servant to deliver something to concubine Row. Do you know what it was? Pastries? Bird's nest? Or perhaps new tea? After Jiao Jiao's beloved cried her heart out for so long, he ignored her in public. But surely he'd make amends afterward. None of the above. It was a letter. Pfft, I couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle, and the silk handkerchief slipped from my face. Opening my eyes, I felt intrigued. What was Su Jiro's reaction when she saw it? According to our people, after reading it, concubine Row pressed the letter to her chest for a long time, smiling foolishly the whole while. This morning, she didn't even pick at her cold porridge, she ate it with great care. Miss, do you think the Marquis laced his ink with some potion? To make someone willingly endure hardship like that? I don't know if Yuan Shaoxuan's ink was laced with anything. All I know is that Su Jirua is ill, and seriously so. A man who offers nothing of substance. Just empty words. And she treats them like a cure. Devoted to the point of self-destruction. Feasting on love alone is a recipe for starvation. My mother-in-law had been on a Buddhist pilgrimage for half a month but returned the day before her son's official appointment. Yuan Shaoxian took me with him to pay respects. First, mother and son exchanged warm greetings. Then, twirling her prayer beads, my mother-in-law turned a cold, half-lowered gaze toward me. I hear that whenever Shaoxian visits the courtyard these days, he always goes straight to your room? 3 months into the marriage, not only is there no sign of pregnancy, but she clings to her husband relentlessly. As the legitimate wife, how could she be so petty and monopolize his affection? This was her way of voicing grievances on behalf of her niece. After all, she had raised Su Jirua as her own daughter-in-law since childhood. Naturally, she could never compare to me, an outsider. Yuan Shaoxian stood nearby, lifting his teacup and pretending to sip. He must have been itching for this excuse to justify frequenting Su Jirua's quarters openly. I remained unperturbed, bowing to offer my apology. It was my poor judgment. Mother, My mother-in-law seemed satisfied with my docility, offering a condescending smile. Since that is the case, you know what must be done, don't you? I understand, mother. Yuan Shaoxian continued sipping his tea. Yet his movements froze involuntarily. He perked his ears, waiting for my next words. How could I disappoint his expectations? With a soft chuckle, I beckoned toward the doorway. My husband's chambers stand empty. Aside from myself, only concubine Ro remains, one who fails to win his favor. Thus, I have specially sought out a virtuous and beautiful concubine, hoping she might offer some solace to my husband. As I spoke, a slender, beautiful woman entered the room, shy and timid, greeting everyone with proper etiquette. You. Mother-in-law slammed her prayer beads onto the table, gritting her teeth, ready to explode. But I cut her off, patting her chest anxiously and asking, "What have I done wrong?" Yuan Shaoxian answered for his mother. "Nothing wrong at all. Yin Yang's gesture is most considerate." His words praised me, yet his eyes never left the beautiful woman. His smile radiant. A cold laugh rose in my heart. Truly, she was the concubine Rong who had captivated Yuan Shaoxian in my past life. In her past life, Fang Yurong had indeed entered Yuan Shaoxuan's chambers. But back then, as the top courtesan of a brothel, her lips had been tasted by countless men. Later, a minor official had bought her freedom and bribed her to Yuan Shaoxian. This lifetime, I found her first and redeemed her at a high price. As a courtesan whose virginity was about to be auctioned off, she was deeply grateful that I rescued her from the flames and arranged for her to become the Marquis's concubine. Moreover, Fang Yurong hadn't expected the Marquis to be so young and handsome. Her smile deepening. Enchanted, Yuan Shaoxian couldn't resist wrapping his arms around her waist, urgently excusing himself from his mother-in-law. His mother's chest heaved more intensely, yet she found no words to stop him. I followed them out. Only when we reached the doorway did Yuan Shaoxian notice my presence. "Yin Yang," he said, "I've just taken up my post and will be swamped with duties. I won't be able to visit your quarters daily. I'll come find you when I have time." My hand rested on my belly as I smiled faintly in agreement. "There's no need to seek me out again. With a child on the way, what use would I have for you?" My pregnancy remained unknown to all but my closest confidants. The memory of my difficult labor in my previous life grew increasingly unsettling. The midwife had confirmed the fetus's position was normal and its size unremarkable. How could it have led to complications? Could it be? This time, I must be exceedingly cautious. Fortunately, Yuan Shaoxian was utterly captivated by Fang Yurong, no longer disturbing me, allowing me to rest peacefully for the pregnancy. Fang Yurong, steeped in the ways of the world and meticulously trained by the madam, knew countless intricacies of the bedroom. No man could resist her charms. Yuan Shaoxuan's duties were light. He returned early from the palace and immediately slipped into her chambers. If any unfinished business remained, he summoned Fang Yurong to the study for red sleeves, adding fragrance. The change of scenery made their affairs all the more delightful. For a time, concubine Rong's influence was unrivaled. I could sit still, but others couldn't. Forgotten and neglected, Su Jiro's days grew harder. Yet her anguish stemmed not from worsening circumstances, but from fear that her beloved's affection had changed. She dipped silver thread in blood, embroidering 2 lines of verse overnight on plain silk. Her personal maid, Ziying, delivered it to Yuan Shaoxian. Coincidentally, Yuan Shaoxuan's novelty with Fang Yurong had begun to wane. Seeing this stirred a flicker of his former affection. He returned to Su Jiruo's quarters for several days. Fang Yurong immediately clung to him, demanding attention. To appease her, Yuan Shaoxian showered her room with gifts like flowing water. The latest glass hairpins, rare double lotus brocade, Freshly hunted venison, everything except his own portion was given to Fang Yurong. Meanwhile, Su Zhirua, who toiled diligently in his service, received nothing. Yet she harbored no resentment. As she helped Yuan Shaoxian dress one morning, she declared with profound devotion, having won brother Xian's heart, "I am content. How could such mundane things compare to the affection between us?" Deeply moved, Yuan Shaoxian pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Zhirua, only you understand me." In the blink of an eye, the mercury mirror gifted by the foreign envoy was delivered to both Fang Yurong's and my chambers. See? He clearly knows how to cherish someone. Yet he refuses to do so. So is this love, expressed only in words, truly love at all? Through my deliberate leaks, Fang Yurong learned Yuan Shaoxian would secretly visit Suzerayo. She sensed something was amiss. Thus, upon my return from the banquet, I was hastily summoned to Fang Yurong's courtyard. The woman, soaked through, wrapped in a quilt, pointed at Su Zhirua and wailed, "Your lordship." She pushed me into the lake. My maidservant can testify. She must be jealous of my favor. While the mistress was away, she tried to kill me. Her voice broke as she buried her face in her hands and sobbed. I shot her a withering glare. "What a disgrace! Hurry and have the maids change your clothes. Do you intend to ruin your own body like this?" Fang Yurong sniffled. "I don't want to ruin myself either. I just wanted the Marquis and the lady to see how wicked this woman is." Only then did she allow the maids to escort her into the bedroom. I glanced at Yuan Shaoxian seated at the head of the table. He held his folding fan, his expression shifting between light and shadow, lost in thought. "Your Excellency, what do you think of this matter?" He snapped back to reality, took a deep breath, and addressed the kneeling woman below the dais. "Su Shi, do you have anything to say?" Startled from her daze, Su Zhirua stammered blankly. I didn't do it. I have no defense. Brother Xian, please investigate clearly." I saw the vein on Yuan Shaoxuan's temple throb. After a long moment, he ground out through clenched teeth. "So you can't produce evidence proving you didn't push her? She slanders me like this, and I truly don't know what to say." Watching Su Zhirua, who couldn't articulate a coherent defense, Yuan Shaoxian couldn't help but take another deep breath. Just then, a woman knelt with a thud beside Su Zhirua. It was her personal maid, Ziying. Madame Rong found an excuse to send me away, leaving only her and the concubine alone. What happened then is known only to those three. Your lordship, you know how Auntie Rong is, she never strives or competes. Why would she risk everything to harm Auntie Rong? In this servant's humble opinion, it's likely Auntie Rong jumped into the lake herself, then had her maid fabricate false testimony to frame Auntie Rong. I implore your lordship not to pass judgment based on one side's account alone. Clear-thinking and sharp-tongued, a maid both courageous and resourceful, I rarely give Ziying a proper glance. Su Zhiro nodded frantically in agreement. These words struck a chord with Yuan Shaoxian. He murmured softly, "I know Zhiro's character. She wouldn't do such a thing. As you say, it's possible Lady Rong staged a self-inflicted injury." "That's impossible." Fang Yurong swept aside the curtain and stormed before Yuan Shaoxian, grabbing his hand and pressing it against her abdomen. "I am already with child. How could I risk the life of the Marquis' offspring?" Su Zhirua was confined to her quarters. As she was dragged away, she murmured, "Xian Gu, you should believe me. This scenario played out in my past life too. Back then, I intervened, expending great effort to thoroughly investigate and restore Su Zhirua's innocence and freedom. But this time, I intend to stay out of it. Isn't it better to enjoy some peace and quiet?" Only Dong Rue, ever the inquisitive one, occasionally murmurs in my ear. The Marquis snuck off to see concubine Ro again, They clung tightly together, one muttering, "Time will clear your name. I'm protecting you," while the other tearfully replied, "I know you believe me. He's the one who can find her. Yet he acts like this? He should be investigating the truth instead." I shook my head. One dared to speak. The other dared to believe. What kind of man is he? Unable to protect even his own woman? Fearing the power of my maternal family and wary of Fong Yurong's underhanded schemes, he cast his beloved into the dust, refusing her even a shred of respect, all under the guise of protection. Such love, unwilling to see the light of day, could only deceive a foolish woman like Su Zhiruo. Or perhaps it was precisely because of Su Zhiruo's unwavering devotion that he dared to treat her like a plaything to be trampled upon. After my death in my previous life, he immediately elevated Su Zhiruo to the highest status. Thus he wallowed in his self-righteous devotion, turning women into mere plaques to display his supposed true love. But then again, looking at concubine Ro's weak-willed demeanor, she hardly seems the type to do such things. Could it truly be concubine Ro orchestrating this all herself? I flipped a page of the scroll, eyes never lifting. Fortune favors the bold, doesn't it? Dongrui leaned closer and pressed on. But concubine Rome is pregnant. Miss, aren't you afraid? Afraid of what? She can't bear it to term. In my past life, Fong Yurong also had a child once. But because she'd consumed too many secret potions since her youth in the brothel, her body was ruined. The fetus didn't last long inside her, it soon turned into a pool of blood and flowed out. Besides, even if by some miracle she managed to give birth, it would only be a bastard child. It wouldn't affect the position of the child in my womb. Yuan Shaoxian visited Su Zhiruo twice. Then never again. He also grew scarce at Fong Yurong's quarters, likely mindful that her pregnancy forbade their former reckless indulgences. Later, I heard from the front courtyard servants that Yuan Shaoxian had been frequenting the pleasure quarters with his colleagues lately. He must have found a new mistress there. I never went to admonish him. My mother-in-law, enraged, had retired to the mountains to devote herself to Buddhist practices. With the deep winter approaching and the household affairs mounting, I was utterly consumed with busyness. So busy I had no time to attend to Su Zhiruo. Confined to her quarters, the servants in her courtyard had been reassigned back to the main house at the start of her confinement. Now, in the entire Yuzhu pavilion, only she and Ziying remained. Not only did she have to handle everything herself, but she also faced the hardship of lacking clothes, coal, and enough food to fill her stomach. Master and servant endured hunger and cold day after day, toiling tirelessly. I simply pretended not to know. Yet even so, Su Zhiruo never considered investigating the truth herself to clear her name. Like a daughter vine, she clung to the hope that true love would eventually rescue her. Later, when they could endure no longer, they resorted to their former practice, embroidering handkerchiefs day and night, hoping to secretly sell them for silver to ease their plight. But without my high-priced purchases, the crooked handkerchiefs embroidered by their frostbitten, swollen hands found no market at all. All their toil was for naught. In the end, with insufficient charcoal, drafty doors and windows, and rain bamboo pavilions remote, damp, and gloomy location, mistress and servant soon fell victim to rheumatic pains. Night after night, they endured unbearable agony, their cries of distress echoing through the darkness. Whether Yuan Shaoxian knew or not, he remained utterly indifferent. Looking back now, Yuan Shaoxuan's escalating cruelty towards Su Zhirong in my previous life, meant to prove his loyalty to me, was nothing more than him banking on my support. After I extended a helping hand that first time, he knew my kindness and was certain I wouldn't let his beloved suffer too much. But if I were gone, would he truly strive to ease her suffering? Probably not. Not long after, Fong Yurong suddenly came seeking me. Kneeling in the hall, her pleas were earnest. This lowly life was saved by the lady. The child within me naturally belongs to you. I am of humble birth. Keeping the child with me might corrupt its character and tarnish the Marquis's bloodline. I hope that after the child is born, it may be raised in your care. I beg your kindness, madam. I set down my teacup gently, my smile unchanged. Since he has chosen to be reborn within you, it is fate that binds him to you. How could I take what is rightfully yours? You're likely just overthinking things in your pregnancy. Relax and focus on nurturing the child. Madam. Fong Yurong tried to speak further, but Dong Rui cut her off. Auntie Rong, Madam has just finished meeting with the stewards of all the shops and estates. She's quite exhausted and needs to rest. Hearing this, she stopped speaking. Knowing further pleas might incur my displeasure, she forced a smile, curtsied, and took her leave. Watching her depart in such a dazed state, Dong Rui was utterly perplexed. Auntie Rong is far too timid. The child hasn't even been born yet, and she's already afraid she won't raise it properly. I sighed deeply. It was the heart of a loving mother. Fong Yurong was seeking both protection and a bright future for her child. Unaware of my own pregnancy, she assumed I would ensure her safe delivery if I agreed. Once the child was registered under my name and raised by the mistress of the house, it would be held in high regard upon entering society. Dong Rui murmured softly, pouting slightly. What was she afraid of? The Marquis adored her so. Look at that enormous night pearl adorning her hair. The vibrant jade green twisted silk bracelet on her wrist. Not to mention the Huanhua brocade draped over her, a single bolt of that fabric cost 1,000 gold pieces. Her attire was practically on par with a young miss. Before she could finish, Nanny Chen suddenly spoke. Her tone urgent. Madam, keep your distance from her henceforth. I met her grave gaze and instantly sensed something was terribly wrong. But? Nanny Chen nodded solemnly. The sachets she wore contained tonghan grass. This herb, sourced from the Miao tribes of the southwest, possessed a clear, subtle fragrance yet carried potent blood-activating properties. If a pregnant woman inhaled its scent for too long, it could lead to miscarriage or difficult labor. I had seen this herb before while serving consort Shuntai. I couldn't hear anything else she said afterward. My whole body shook uncontrollably, and my mind buzzed. The sachet, the tonghan grass, blood circulation, difficult labor. In my past life, Yuan Shaoxian had personally fastened a sachets around my neck. Its scent was identical to the one on Fong Yurong. He said it was a token for me to carry always, so I would never forget his affection. I wore it day and night, never removing it. Little did I know, there was a hidden danger within. Nanny Chen and Dong Rui, seeing my state, hurried to support me. Forgive this old servant for speaking out of turn and frightening you. Madam, miss, you have no sachets. Please do not be afraid. I clutched their hands tightly, my lips trembling so fiercely I could not speak. Tears streamed down my cheeks. A tidal wave of hatred engulfed me. So, in my past life, my death had been deliberately orchestrated. My husband, the father of my child, had personally killed us both. I had thought him merely heartless and ungrateful, never imagining he could be more beastly and ruthless than I had ever imagined. He was a demon. After several days of recuperation, my mind became crystal clear. Though reborn, I hated Yuan Shaoxian for toying with me. Yet I never intended to take his life, only to make him suffer. But now it seems this man must not be spared. Coincidentally, during my time feigning illness, a new concubine named Concubining appeared in the mansion. Originally Su Jiruo's maid, Ziying, no longer willing to endure hardship, bribed the guarding servant. She secretly escaped from Yushu Pavilion and climbed into Yuan Shaoxuan's bed. With her lovely looks and skill at flattery and servility, Yuan Shaoxian naturally welcomed her with open arms. Thus, Yu Xian was left with only Su Zhiruo. She sat guarding the house awaiting cleaning, surrounded by piles of soiled clothes, waiting bitterly for Zi Ying's return. She didn't know that Zi Ying, who had once willingly worked herself to the bone for her, would never come back. But I went. When I arrived, I found Su Zhiruo sitting in the only sunlit spot in the courtyard, propping her chin on one hand, staring blankly at the sky. She was dressed entirely in white. No wonder Zi Ying had complained about never-ending laundry. Living in this dilapidated courtyard with no servants, she had to do things herself. Ordinary clothes got dirty easily enough. How much worse must white garments be? Poor Zi Ying had her hands full. Hearing the sound, Su Zhiruo called out without turning her head. Zi Ying. Zi Ying was no longer in the mansion, only concubining remained. Surprised to find it was me, Su Zhiruo abruptly turned, paused in a daze, then rose to curtsy. Yet her movements were slow and stiff, as if her joints ached with rheumatism. Madam, I'm afraid I didn't catch what you said. By then, Dongruei had brought me a chair, padded with thick cushions. She gently helped me sit before I spoke. Didn't you understand? Sister? We have gained another sister. She took a few small steps back, disbelief etched on her face, murmuring softly, "Impossible. How could it be?" She clearly said she was going to plead for mercy at the risk of her life. How could? And Brother Xian loves me so deeply, how could he take someone close to me? There must be some trickery involved. Something must have gone terribly wrong. I chuckled softly. What trickery could there be? It's simply mutual affection, a natural union of two hearts. No. 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 Impossible. Brother Xian loves me so much. He wouldn't do this to me. He told me, as long as heaven endures, our love shall never fade. Our hearts are bound by a double thread, knotted 1,000 times. We truly love each other. Su Zhiruo fought back tears, her voice hoarse as she raged at me, her expression wild and frenzied. I remained unperturbed, but Dongruei couldn't accept it. She fastened my thick snow fox cloak, replaced the charcoal in my hand warmer, and rolled her eyes in mockery. Yes. 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 Your Xian loves you most. Loves you most. So he makes you live in the worst place. Loves you most. So he confines you and feeds you stale food. Loves you most. So he carouses with women and indulges in pleasures. Yet never once remembers you, his former fiancé. So this is love. Well, my young mistress can't afford to be loved by the Marquis at all, after all. She still wants to enjoy every luxury and splendor. Su Zhiruo's tears finally spilled forth as she sniffled in protest. What do you know? He only dares not offend you because your young mistress has an Empress sister. Dongruei nodded. Oh. So my young mistress has an Empress sister? Does concubine Rong have one too? Concubining as well? Their food and clothes aren't any worse than my young mistress's. Only you live worse than the lowliest stable hand. Yet here you are, getting all sentimental. He's trampled you into the mud, and you're still licking his shoe soles, thanking him for his favor. You're 1,000 times more foolish than any street idiot. As Dongruei's words grew increasingly outrageous, I intervened, ordering her to withdraw. Su Zhiruo froze, stunned by the barrage. Only after a long moment did she snap back to reality, collapsing to the floor in a wailing sob. I rose and stepped forward, looking down at her near collapse. By the way, I uncovered something I'm sure you'll find interesting. As far as I know, the most crucial piece of evidence that led to Magistrate Su's downfall was submitted by the Marquis of Schwamping's household. She lifted her gaze at me blankly, her eyes utterly lifeless. No. Impossible. How could Brother Xian betray me? How could he destroy my family? We clearly. I snorted coldly. lifting my gaze toward the void. Why wouldn't he? He had to cast you aside to form an alliance with the Empress's family. Then, under the guise of kindness, he took you in. A virtuous wife and a beautiful concubine, killing two birds with one stone. How splendid! With that, I turned to leave. But suddenly, a thud echoed behind me as Sujirua slammed her forehead hard against the ground. She then pushed herself up, crawled on her knees to my feet, and knelt before me. Blood mingled with tears trickled down her face. Her eyes were bloodshot, filled with despair and sorrow. She gave a wretched smile. Madam, I beg you to show me mercy. The fetus was already 4 months along. As my belly gradually swelled, I knew concealment was futile. I sought out Yuan Shaoxian of my own accord. Upon hearing of my pregnancy, he paused, then forced a smile. This is truly wonderful news. I pretended not to notice the worry in his eyes, gently caressing my belly as I smiled contentedly. Indeed, mother-in-law has been urging us for a young heir, now he's truly arrived. At the words young heir, his brow twitched again. He didn't want the marquisate to pass to a child born of a woman he didn't love. How could Yun Yang know it's a boy? I'll cherish it whether boy or girl. This concubine feels the same. Only after bearing a child does one understand a parent's hardship, so I've been thinking of my mother often these days. Now that the New Year festivities have passed and the manor is quiet, might my husband grant me permission to stay at my maternal home for a while? Knowing he couldn't refuse, he could only agree. Returning to the Grand Tutor's residence and receiving my mother's care, I finally breathed a sigh of relief, settling into a life of peaceful pregnancy. While my world was calm, the Marquis's manor faced one crisis after another. Before leaving, I claimed Yuan Shaoxian needed someone to care for him and released Sujiro. Yuan Shaoxian readily agreed. Absence made the heart grow fonder, and with Sujiro's eager attentions, they became inseparable. Sujiro no longer insisted on wearing white. She donned brightly colored garments, pale yellow, light green, lotus root pink, apricot red, whatever was most vivid. Using the cosmetics I had specially gifted her, she adorned herself in full regalia, leaving Yuan Shaoxian, who truly adored her, utterly captivated. Then came the news that Fang Yurong had lost the child again. Though she had long ceased wearing the sachets at my urging, her fragile constitution ultimately failed to sustain the fetus. The remaining Ziying, fearing awkwardness with her former mistress, avoided all confrontations and refrained from competing. For a time, Sujirua enjoyed Yuan Shaoxuan's favor alone. Whenever servants reported on the latest happenings at the Marquis's residence, their accounts invariably concluded with one phrase. That concubine Xianru remains in constant favor, the Marquis is quite taken with her. After some time passed and I still hadn't returned to the Marquis's residence, Yuan Shaoxian came to urge me several times. But since I had escaped, how could I return to the side of that vicious wolf? Seeing he couldn't persuade me, he sent Sujiro instead. She didn't ask me to return, but instead humbly recounted the latest affairs within the mansion, which largely matched what I already knew. After a few moments of conversation, she brought up the incense. I snipped away the stray flower branches with a sharp crack, casually reminding her, "Don't forget to take your antidote on time." She spat out between clenched teeth, having narrowly escaped death without avenging my wrongs. I naturally value my life. I gave her a fleeting glance. You've learned quickly enough. Indeed, innocence cannot endure suffering. At last, Sujirua presented a familiar-looking sachet. The Marquis ordered this concubine to deliver it personally to the lady. He said this item is like his heart. He hopes the lady will wear it daily, never forgetting his affection for you. Intense hatred surged in my chest once more. I clenched my fists. Here we go again. He raised the slaughtering blade once more. Seeing my silence, Sujirua unusually said no more. The token delivered. This servant takes her leave. I gave a faint nod, offering no protest. But at the threshold, she suddenly turned, fell to her knees with a thud, and remained silent, head bowed. After a long moment, she clenched her jaw and declared resolutely, "Madam, you cannot wear this sachet." I smiled. "I know." She snapped her head up, meeting my all-knowing gaze. "You already know?" I tossed the sachet into the brazier, letting the flames devour its intricate embroidery. Since the Marquis liked that incense, light another stick. Smoke billowed upward as I lowered my eyes. The time has come. The child would be born in a few months. He must not bear the stigma of being a father's curse. As early summer approached, the young Marquis of Xianping passed away suddenly. The imperial physician's examination concluded he died of a heart attack. He died in the arms of the woman he loved most. In the midst of their deepest passion, I returned to the Marquis's residence to oversee the arrangements. Dong Rui, who had arrived first, hurried to support me, whispering in my ear, "Everything has been taken care of." I gave an almost imperceptible nod, then let out a wail, clutching my swollen belly as I collapsed before the coffin. "My lord, how could you leave me like this? What will become of me and this child within me? How shall we survive?" My wails were heart-wrenching, a sight to make the blood run cold. Those who witnessed it whispered even more, saying the Marquis of Xianping had died in the arms of his concubine just 1 year after his marriage. It seemed he was a thief by day, yet secretly a womanizer. Truly, one cannot judge a book by its cover. But it was the Marquis's devoted wife who suffered most, now burdened with raising their posthumous child alone. I had barely cried for 2 moments when commotion erupted outside the courtyard. It was my mother-in-law's curses. "Give me back my son! Give me back my son!" I truly raised a white-eyed wolf. "All my kindness to you, all how much Xiao Xian cherished you, and in return, you worthless slut took his life." Torn and torn, Su Jiruo endured the beating and curses. Head bowed, silent, her expression unreadable. I stepped out, my face etched with grief and tears, to try and calm things. Seeing me, the mother-in-law turned her fury on me. "As the mistress of this Marquis's household, you neglected your husband's care, spending all your days at your natal home. You bear responsibility for Xiao Xian's death." With that, she actually pushed me. Though Dong Rui shielded me, not a single finger touched me. Yet I felt a tightening in my belly, a warm flow surging from below. "Dong Rui, Nanny Chen, I think I'm going into labor." Amidst the chaos, I successfully gave birth to my child. The moment he was born, palace attendants arrived to proclaim the imperial decree of investiture. I was bestowed the title of first-rank noble lady, and my child directly inherited the marquisate, becoming the youngest marquis of the reign. No one raised any objection. Only my mother-in-law, accused by the world of attempting to murder her own grandson, was overcome by grief upon hearing the news. The shock struck her heart, causing a stroke. She passed away shortly thereafter. Once everything settled, Ziying came to beg forgiveness. Ziying had betrayed her former master to curry favor, an act of treachery. Today she came specifically to atone, hoping for the lady's mercy. I motioned for Dongrui to help her up. A generous heart is no vice, but punishment is still warranted. You shall serve as manager of my newly opened shop. Do you accept? Ziying wept with joy, kowtowing repeatedly. This servant willingly accepts. Most willingly. Thank you, madam, for your kindness. I had investigated her family background. Originally, they traded in spices, but her father's gambling addiction led to the shop being lost. Even before she was sold into service, she had long assisted her parents in managing the business. demonstrating a certain business acumen. Rather than letting her languish within the mansion, it would be better to set her free to pursue her own path. In stark contrast was Fang Yurong. She feared I would send her away, weeping pitifully. "Please, madam, don't send me away. I've wandered half my life. Finally, I've come to the home mansion to enjoy some comfort. I don't want to work hard for even a moment." She made me laugh. And I agreed. She's endured so much hardship. Now that she's finally found stability, I'll support her for the rest of her life. It's no trouble at all. Su Jirua was the last to arrive. She wore white robes again, just as when I first met her. "Is this mourning for your aunt? Or for your Xian brother?" She knelt slowly, her eyes cold and detached. "Neither. I mourn the love I wasted. The mistress has shown them mercy. I too beg for mercy, please let me leave." I lifted my head from the cradle, watching her with amusement. "Why? Is staying at the Marquis's residence not good enough? My home is gone. My beloved is dead. My vengeance is served. My love has faded. Nothing in this world holds me back anymore. Perhaps I should go out into the world, seek meaning in this journey." I granted her request. Sujiro took the travel money I gave her. With the sky as high and the sea as wide, she set off to find her own freedom and pursuits. After she departed, Dongrui couldn't help but ask, "Miss, you never investigated the crimes that brought down Auntie Rose's family. How could you know the Marquis provided the incriminating evidence? Whether it was true or not, whether I knew or not, it no longer mattered. After all, she believed it, didn't she?" At the end of the day, Sujirua was a pitiable soul. Though foolishly wicked, she wasn't utterly beyond redemption. Had she chosen to become my blade, I would have granted her a path to survival, accumulating merit for myself. Had she refused, she likely would have met the same fate as Yuan Shaoxian. Gentle breezes rustled through the trees as warm sunlight bathed the world. I bent down and pressed a tender kiss upon my child's peaceful, sleeping face. The grudges of past lives have been settled. The obstacles of this life have been cleared. Reborn through trials. Debts and grievances are now settled. Our time of happiness has finally arrived. The end.